Okay, I'll start on time for the first time this semester. I'm normally late. Okay, so last week we did Monopoly, so just having one firm, and we looked at welfare. This time we're going to start doing something that looks a bit more like proper industrial organisation. We're going to look at what happens when you have more than one firm, so we're going to do the basics of Bertrand and Cornet competition. I know you did Bertrand and Cornet competition before. You probably didn't do them exactly like this, and it'll be helpful revision anyway, because it's a long time since. When did you do this first semester of micro in your second year? So it could be, almost 2 years ago if you've had a year out. Okay, so this will be a bit of revision, and we'll be doing things differently anyway. Okay, so it'll still be difficult or harder. And I'm going to start by reminding you of some game theory. Okay, game theory is good fun, but you do surprisingly little of it in your course unless things have changed drastically. So people are doing business economics. You might have seen a little bit in your first year, but apart from that, maybe you haven't seen much at all. Is that true? Business economics people? Who's doing business economics? We normally say. Okay. Well, okay, so maybe this is too easy for you all then. So let's just remind you quickly of some game theory, just so that everyone's on the same page. Okay, so we'll go through 2 games, just to remind you of these basic concepts from game theory. What are the elements of a game? What are dominant strategies? What are Nash equilibria? Etc., etc. If you want to be reminded of these things, we're all in chapter 2.1 of Oshai, okay, basics of game theory. Okay, so you know the prisoner's dilemma, I guess. You probably did this in the first year. Okay, so we'll have some fun with it. So there will be lots of games in an industrial organisation that are going to end up looking a bit like Prisoner's Dilemma. Okay, maybe 2 firms are deciding whether or not to enter an industry. Okay, and if one firm enters, they're going to get monopoly profits. If the other firm enters, they're going to get monopoly profits. If neither firm enter, they're not going to be very happy at all. But if both firms enter, their price is going to be driven down to marginal cost, and they're also going to be very unhappy. So that looks a bit like a prisoner's dilemma, right? Where entry is for defecting. So let's just remind yourself of the normal prisoner's dilemma. Okay, so we've got these 2 prisoners, they're in separated cells, and the policeman comes up to them and says, "You've been a very naughty boy, son." So he says, you've got 2 choices, okay? You can either give evidence against the other person, okay? If you give evidence against the other person, you get to walk free. That's very good for you, but the other person's going to prison for a long time. So you're screwing over this guy who you've been cooperating with, committing your exciting crimes for the last few years. And how long is the other person going to go to jail? Well, he's going to go to jail for 3 years, okay? So if you screw over the other person, he's going to prison for 3 years. Likewise, if he screws you over, okay, you keep quiet, but he says, "Oh yeah, my mate Bob, he did the crime," then Bob is going to prison for 3 years. But if you both give evidence that the other person did the crime, okay, then the police know that you're both guilty, you both go to prison for 2 years. Whereas if you both keep quiet, okay, they can't send you to prison for burglary, but they can send you to prison for breaking and entering, which carries a lesser sentence of only 1 year. Okay, so if both people keep quiet, that's the Pareto dominant outcome. Okay, everyone's better off if the 2 prisoners both keep quiet, but they're going to have an incentive to defect. Okay. So here we're just putting the various outcomes into a grid. This is how games are normally represented. Tell me you've seen this before, seen something like this before? Everyone? So we've got cooperate and defect, and to work out, these are numbers for utility, right? This number is what prisoner A gets if prisoner A cooperates and prisoner B cooperates. Okay, so the numbers on the left are for the row player, the player choosing rows. The numbers on the right are for the column player, the player choosing columns. And how have I worked out these utilities? Well, I took 3 minus the number of years in prison. That's your utility. Okay, so if you go to prison for 2 years, then you get utility of 1. If you go to prison for 3 years, then you get utility of 0. Okay, this all makes sense? Again, we're always these 3 elements to a game. That's the point of this illustration. We always have to define the set of players, who's playing the game, what actions can those players take, okay, and conditional on those actions, what utilities are they going to get. Okay, for firms it's not going to be utility, it's going to be profit, but it's the same idea. Okay, players, actions, outcomes. 3 elements of the game. You know, if you're doing a project for your final year undergrad thesis and you're going to define a game, you know, those are the things you need to think about if you're doing some new modelling. Who's playing the game in my model? You know, what are they doing? How are they interacting? Okay, so I want everyone to close your eyes. I can see if you're closing your eyes. Okay, so you're going to close your eyes, including, come on, everyone. I can see you. Yeah, everyone's got their eyes closed. Good. Okay, imagine you're playing this game. Put your hands up if you would like to cooperate. Okay, and now put your hands up if you'd like to defect. Okay. So, you know, you're a surprisingly nice year. So we've got about 10 people who would cooperate, and the rest of you are bastards who would screw each other over. Okay, so you know, you're fairly nice for a bunch of economists. They've done experiments where they get people from different subjects to play the prisoner's dilemma or similar games, and they normally find that economists are the evilest people when it comes to playing these games. But economic degrees teach people how to be evil. This is what we're teaching you here at Surrey. Skills in being evil, but it seems you're relatively uncorrupted, so 10 of you are quite nice. So why is it quite nice to cooperate? Well, you probably know this already. Well, suppose prisoner B chooses to cooperate. Okay, what does prisoner A want to do? Well, if prisoner A knew that prisoner B was going to cooperate, then he's got a choice between getting 3 by defecting or 2 by cooperating, so he's always going to choose to defect. Okay? Likewise, if prisoner A knew that prisoner B was going to defect, then prisoner A has a choice between getting 1 by defecting and 0 by cooperating. Okay, so there he'd like to defect as well. So it doesn't matter whether prisoner B cooperates or defects. Either case, prisoner A is always better defecting. So prisoner A doesn't need to know what prisoner B is going to do. Prisoner A should always want to defect if he's acting as a utility maximizing person. Okay, likewise, because everything's symmetric, it doesn't matter what prisoner A wants to do, prisoner B ought to want to defect. Okay, so if both players are playing rationally, we ought to get this outcome, where both players defect, both players get utility 1. Okay, which is quite a rubbish outcome. If they both cooperated, they could both get 2. Okay, so this is kind of a failure of coordination. And we call this an equilibrium in strictly dominant strategies. What does it mean to be strictly dominant? It means that the action you want to choose is completely independent of what the other person is doing. Okay, this is a stronger concept than a Nash equilibrium. Any equilibrium in strictly dominant strategies is a Nash equilibrium, but not every Nash equilibrium is an equilibrium in strictly dominant strategies. Okay, so let me show you a game in which there's a Nash equilibrium, but not an equilibrium in strictly dominant strategies. Have you heard of this game before, Stag Hunt? It's another one of these standard game examples. Oh, actually, but before we move on, let me give you a good prisoner's dilemma example. So, I got home from Paris late last night on the train, okay, and on the train a lot of people bought their dinners, okay, they bought their dinners, they got some mess, and they left all their mess on the train, okay. Because people leave their mess on the train, it means someone has to come along and clean up all that mess, okay, which means ticket prices are higher. So there's a cooperative equilibrium in which everyone takes their mess home. Okay, and when everyone takes that mess home, ticket prices can be lower. It doesn't actually cost you very much to take a bag of stuff off the train, so people are probably better off in the cooperative equilibrium, which everyone takes mess home. But if one person is going to come along and leave a bag of rubbish on the train, then Eurostar has to pay a company to go up the aisle cleaning up. So ticket prices have to be higher. Okay, and given ticket prices are higher and someone's going to be cleaning up after you anyway, you might as well leave your mess on the train. So we end up in this bad equilibrium in which the mess is stuck on the train. So there are lots of examples you can see in the real world that look a bit like Prisoner's Dilemma. Okay, that's just one from last night. Okay, so Stag Hunt, different game. Okay, we've got two hunters. They're lying in wait behind a bush. Okay, they've got their gun, and they're waiting for a stag. Okay, and they really want to kill a stag so they can mount its head above their fireplace, because that's what cool kids do. Okay, but they're also quite hungry, so they want to kill something today. They'd rather it was a stag, but they see two hares running past. Okay, hares are like big rabbits, but non-British people. So they could jump out from behind the bush and shoot this hare. If they shoot the hare, then they get to eat some nice hare steak for dinner. They don't get a stag's head to mount above their fireplace, but at least they're no longer hungry. The problem is if they shoot the hare, then the noise of a shot is going to scare away all of the deer, and we've got no chance of shooting a deer at all that day. Okay, and it's not just Hunter A who can't shoot a deer that day, the other hunter can't shoot a deer that day either. However, if they both remain patient, they let the hares run past, carry on waiting for the stag, eventually that stag is going to walk past their bush and they're going to shoot the stag. Okay, so representing it in this form again, these are the choices they got. So Hunter A, it's another symmetric game. Hunter A can either wait patiently for the stag, or can catch the hare, shoot the hare. If they strictly prefer to shoot, conditional on the other person waiting patiently, they prefer to shoot the stag, to wait for the stag. But if the other person is going to catch the hare, so the other person is going to shoot his gun, frighten the stag away, then if they waited patiently, they'd get nothing at all. So in that case, they'd prefer to catch the hare, okay, to catch a hare as well. So here, if Hunter B plays stag, Hunter A wants to play stag. If Hunter B plays hare, Hunter A wants to play hare. Okay, so this isn't like the Prisoner's Dilemma where whatever the other person did, you always wanted to play the bottom option. Here, you want to play the same thing as what the other person's playing. And all we've done with these numbers, the only change is that we've reduced all the threes have become ones. Okay, here we had 3, 3. Now we've got 1, 1. So it's almost the same game, we've just changed two numbers in the grid. Okay, so there's clearly not a dominant strategy here, I've said that already. Maybe we should play this game. Close your eyes again. Come on, I can see you. Close your eyes. Okay, so who's gonna wait patiently for the stag? Okay, and who's gonna jump out and catch the hare? Okay, so surprisingly there were only 9 of you who wanted to wait for the stag. So people are actually less nice in this game for some reason. Maybe I miscounted, but So you're not significantly nicer in this game than you were in the Prisoner's Dilemma. So economic theory would tell us that probably most people should play defect here, and maybe people should incline towards playing cooperate here, or be more likely to play the cooperative outcome here. Because 2-2, this is a Nash equilibrium, okay? There are going to be two Nash equilibria to this game, this one and this one. And clearly this one Pareto dominates that one, so you might hope that people would play the Pareto dominant outcome. Guess what you're doing by playing this one is you're choosing one which is a bit robust to risk. Okay, there's a notion in game theory called risk dominance, and that imagine that the other player occasionally makes small mistakes. Okay, the other player might intend to wait for the stag, but sometimes their gun goes off a bit early anyway. They're a bit itchy on the trigger, you know, they're a bit worried. They sometimes accidentally press the button. Okay, then the stag gets scared off. Okay, if there's some small probability that you think the other person is going to play stag, then maybe you want to play hare anyway, just so you get some food. So maybe this is what you were thinking about when you all chose hare. Okay, so why are stag and hare Nash equilibria? Well, okay, suppose that player B, hunter B, is playing stag, then hunter A has a choice between getting 2 by playing stag or 1 by playing hare, so they prefer to get 2 by playing stag. Okay, and it's symmetric, so the same is true the other way around. So that's going to be a Nash equilibrium. Hare is a Nash equilibrium because if player B is playing hare, then hunter A has a choice between getting 1 by playing hare or 0 by playing stag. They prefer to get 1. Okay, so hare is also a Nash equilibrium. Okay, so remember that the characteristic of these Nash equilibria is that conditional on what everyone else is playing, you can't do any better by deviating. Okay, so hold fix what everyone else is doing, you're doing the best you can. And there's a simple way of finding Nash equilibria in games like this when you've got them on a grid. Let me just copy this. I can show you 2, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. Okay, this is stag, hare, stag, hare. One thing you can do is you can underline the best responses. Okay, so you can work out each player's best response function. So conditional on what the other person's doing, what would you like to do? So conditional on this person playing stag, you would like to play stag. Conditional on this person playing hare, 0 or 1, you would like to play hare. And now think for this person, well, conditional on this person playing stag, this person, the column player, well, they would like to play stag. Conditional on this person playing hare, column player has a choice between 0 or 1, they would like to get 1, so they would play hare. So then any cell where everything is underlined, that's a Nash equilibrium. So when it's only a simple game like this, there's not much point doing the underlining, but if you've got a big game with lots of players or lots of actions, then this is a quick way of finding Nash equilibrium. Okay, so we've got 2 Nash equilibria in this game. Are there any other Nash equilibria?
That's the mixed one.
There's the mixed one. So you've done mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. Everyone's done mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. Some people shaking, some people. So in previous years, people haven't seen it before, but maybe. Okay. So for those of you who haven't seen it before, let me show you the mixed strategy. So. Turns out that in these simple games with on a grid, we're always an odd number of equilibria. Okay, so if we found 2, we know there must be at least one more. And turns out there is a third one here. So suppose the players follow this strategy. Okay, they take a coin out of their wallet, they flip the coin. If it lands heads, they shoot the hare. If it lands tails, they wait patiently for the stack. Okay, both players use different coins. Player A can't see player B's coin and vice versa. They toss the coins at the same time. Okay, we do this in privately. They do this privately. So they're both randomizing. Rather than definitely playing stag or definitely playing hare, they're going to use a coin as a random number generator, and they're going to make their decision based on that. Okay, so this seems like a strange thing to do. Why would you want to do it? Well, let's see what happens if they do that. Okay, so Hunter B, suppose Hunter B is playing this strategy. They're flipping the coin. So what's Hunter A's expected value from the 2 actions? That's what we need to calculate, right? So if Hunter A plays stag, then with probability 50% they're going to get 2, and with probability 50% they're going to get 0. So their expected value is 1. Yeah, exactly. So 50% chance of 2, 50% chance of 0 makes an expected value of 1. Likewise, if Hunter A plays hare, then they've got a 50% chance of getting 1 and a 50% chance of getting 1. So in either case they get 1, their expected value is 1. So Hunter A doesn't care about what he plays, right? If he plays stag, he gets 1 with an expectation. If he plays hare, he gets 1 in expectation. So either way he gets 1. He's indifferent between playing stag or hare. Therefore, he doesn't mind flipping a coin to choose which one to play. Right? He's indifferent between the 2. He could play stag, he could play hare, or he could flip a coin. He doesn't care. So player A is happy to flip a coin. Okay, likewise, everything's symmetric. If Hunter A is flipping a coin, then Hunter B is indifferent between stag and hare. Hunter B is also prepared to flip a coin. Okay, so this is a mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. And what makes it work is because in equilibrium the players are indifferent between the 2 options. Given that the other player is randomizing, you're indifferent between the 2 options, so you're happy to randomize as well. Okay, and these mixed strategy Nash equilibria are going to be important in some of the things we'll look at. They can be used to explain price dispersion, so the fact that we see lots of different prices for the same good. Okay, so is everyone happy with the idea of mixed strategy Nash equilibria? Yeah, some of you have seen this before. Just a little quick exercise for you to have a go at now. Suppose these 2's were 3's. Okay, just replace these 2's by 3's. What does the mixed strategy Nash equilibria look like in that case? It's a little bit harder, but I'll give you a minute to think about it, okay? Okay, so has anyone got an answer? Does someone want to give me an answer for how the equilibrium looks? What does each player do? Go on.
1/3 and 2/3.
Pardon?
This
One
side,
third, 2/3.
2/3.
Okay, yeah. So in the original game, right? They tossed a coin because they needed to randomize 50%, 50%, and the trick to randomizing 50%, 50% was that it made the other person just indifferent between the two options. Okay, if you change this to 3, and 3, then if they just tossed a coin, the other person wouldn't be indifferent, right? If Hunter B was tossing a coin and this was a 3, okay, this is a 3, then Hunter A has a choice between getting 50% chance of getting 3, 50% chance of getting 0, so that's the expected value of 1.5, compared to 50% chance of getting 1, 50% chance of getting 1, that's 1. Okay, so we've got a choice between 1.5 and 1, they would strictly prefer stag. Okay, so if Hunter B was tossing a coin, then Hunter A would want to play stag. And if Hunter A was playing stag, then Hunter B would want to play stag. Okay, so it can't be the case that just tossing a coin is going to be an equilibrium in this case. So you need something a bit more sophisticated. What you need is you need to change the probabilities with which you play stag and hare. Okay, so a friend over there worked out that you have to play stag with probability 1/3, hare with probability 2/3. If that's the way around he was saying. So you can think of it that both players have dice in their pocket. Okay, they get these dice out, they roll the dice. If it's 1 or 2, they're going to play stag. If it's 3, 4, 5, 6, they're going to play hare. So why does that work? Well, if it's 1 or... Suppose Hunter B is following that strategy. Okay, with probability 1/3, they're going to play stag. With probability 2/3, they're going to play hare. Have I got this? Yeah, this works. Does this work? Two-thirds playing stag. Okay, I got it. Wrong way around. Okay, so let's. With probability, start again. Probability. Suppose that Hunter B is playing stag with probability 2/3 and hare with probability 1/3. Okay, then their expected value is 2/3 times 2, which is 4/3. Does that work? You sure it was 1/3, 2/3?
It should be the same one.
Pardon?
The choice coordinating should be the same one. So 2/3 and 1/3.
Okay, so if they play hare, it doesn't matter how the other person is randomizing. If they play hare, the row player is going to get 1, right? Okay, so you need to choose the probabilities with which you randomize such that your expected, such that the probability, such that the expected value when you play stag is equal to 1. You've got to be indifferent, right? Both players have got to be indifferent in the equilibrium. That's how these mixed strategies work. Okay, so the expected value has to be equal to 1 when you play stag. So how are you going to make it equal to 1? Well, if you play hare, you get 0. So what you need is that 2 times p... This is 3. I'm being an idiot. Why did no one stop me? It was 1/3, 2/3. I was right to start with. I should really change it on the... have 2 separate slides here so I don't confuse myself. So we're working... Sorry. Okay, remember we've changed the game. These are 3s. I'm an idiot. You're all too timid to tell me I'm an idiot. S-H-S-H. Okay, this is the game we're solving, not 2s. Forget about the 2s. So, if it's 1/3, if the column player is playing stag with probability 1/3, hare with probability 2/3, just like you said to start with. okay, then the expected value is 3 times 1/3 plus 2/3 times 0. 3 times 1/3 is equal to 1. Okay, so here they get expected value of 1, here they get expected value of 1, so the row players are different between the two. Okay. Likewise, the common player is going to be indifferent as well. It's an equilibrium. Okay, so the equilibrium is hunter B plays stag when they roll 1 or 2, hare when they roll 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry for being slow, I confuse myself with these two. Okay, and how did you go about solving this? Well, the idea was that you had to find the probability that would make the other person indifferent. Okay, so in a general game in which you had A, B, C, D, these utilities were just A, B, C, D for the row player. What you need is that the probability of playing the first option plus 1 minus the probability of playing the second option is equal to the probability of playing the first option times C plus 1 minus the probability of playing the second option times D. Okay, so you need PA plus 1 minus PB is equal to PC plus 1 minus PD. See them? So you want to choose each player chooses the probability for which they randomize in order to make the other player indifferent. Okay. And if the other player is indifferent, then the other player is also going to be prepared to randomize. Is that clear? Sorry for confusing myself and you. Okay, so that's all I wanted to remind you about with game theory. Hopefully you've seen most of this stuff before, so it is just revision. So let's move on to something that's actually industrial organization. In particular, price competition. Okay, so purchasing competition, you probably saw it with only 2 firms when you saw it previously. We're going to do the N firm case. And when you saw it previously, you probably had it described to you in a slightly funny way. You probably had people saying, well, you know, they were just undercut by a tiny amount, or epsilon or something, and it was never clear what a tiny amount was. So we're going to do it a bit more formally. We're going to say, let's suppose that people can only price in whole numbers of pounds, or whole numbers of pence. Okay, so no one's going to sell an iPhone for £399 .999999999p. They're going to sell it for either £399.99 or £400 or £399.98. But they can't have fractional numbers of pennies. Okay, so we're going to have whole numbers of the unit. Okay, so we've got n firms. Firm 1 is going to have marginal cost of C1. Firm 2 is going to have marginal cost of C2, etc., etc. Firm 1 is going to choose their price. Maybe they set a price P1, Firm 2 sets a price P2, Firm 3 sets a price P3, etc., etc. These are the actions, okay? So the n firms are the players of our game. The actions they can take are these prices they can set. And all prices are going to be a multiple of some small amount, epsilon, say 1 penny. There's going to be some demand curve for the product, Q of P. Okay, the demand curve will matter. Even with purchasing competition, the demand curve will matter in some circumstances. Consumers are always going to buy from the cheapest firm. Okay, consumers see all of these prices, they choose the cheapest one and they buy from them. And we have to specify what happens when several firms set the same price. Okay, so we're going to assume that when multiple firms set the same price, consumers are equally distributed between them. Okay, so consumers are just randomizing when multiple firms set the same price. Okay, so what price are consumers going to pay? Well, each firm sets a price Pi, so the consumer is going to pay a price P star, which is equal to the minimum of the Pi, for I is 1 up to n. Okay, so for n firms, so this is the minimum of P1, P2, P3, all the way up to Pn. So consumers are only buying from the cheapest firm, the price they pay is the minimum of all the prices the firm set. Okay, so a little example first. So a simple example, more like what you've seen before. Suppose you've got two car firms competing in price. You can only sell a car for a whole number of pounds. Okay, you don't see cars sold for £254 and 72 pence. Okay, it has to be a whole number of pounds. Firm 1 has marginal cost of 4,000, firm 2 has marginal cost of 6,000. And let's suppose for simplicity that demand is completely inelastic. Okay, so there are some number of consumers out there who desperately need a car, they're prepared to pay whatever a car costs. And there's some questions on the slide, maybe they're slightly strange questions. So I say, what is the difference in price between the prices set by both firms in any Nash equilibrium? Okay, so imagine there's a Nash equilibrium of this game. How big a difference in price could there be between the prices set between the two firms? Maybe let's get to that later. Tell me what might a Nash equilibrium in this game look like? Let's think about that first. There might be quite a few Nash equilibrium. Can someone give me one? So what price might firm 1 set? Looks like you want to answer something.
6,000.
So firm 1 sets the price of 6,000. Okay, and firm 1, 6,000, and firm 2, what price might they set?
Same.
Firm 2 also sets 6,000. Okay. Well, if firm 2 also sets the price of 6,000, sorry, you want to say something?
Wouldn't firm 1 set a price of 6,000 minus epsilon and then get the whole market?
Okay. So that's a. Okay. So let's look at those two different equilibria. So you're saying we should set a price of 5,999. Okay. So let's think about this equilibrium first, where both firms set 6,000, or possible equilibria. So they both set the same price. Demand is equally split between the two firms. So firm 1 is getting half the market, and they're making profits of £2,000 per unit. Okay, they're selling some number of units. Each unit they're selling, they're making profits of £2,000. If they cut their price by £1 to 5,999, then they get the whole market, and they're making profits of £1,999. Okay, so they either get half the market at £2,000 profit per unit, or the whole market at £1,999 per unit. They're clearly going to prefer the second option, right? As long as they're selling at least 2 cars, then they're going to be better off with this. So 6,000 isn't an equilibrium because there's a profitable deviation, but 5,999, 6,000 is going to be an equilibrium. Sorry, you had a question at the back?
Yes. What if they don't? They both charge £20,000 because demand is inelastic?
If they both charge £20,000, then either firm would have a profitable deviation downwards. Okay, so firm 1 and firm 2 both charge £20,000. Well, firm 1 is getting half the market. They would rather cut their price by £1 and get the whole market. Okay. So, yeah, so both charging very high price isn't going to be an equilibrium. Why is this an equilibrium? Well, all you need to do is you need to check whether each firm would want to increase their price or whether they want to decrease their price. We have to check there are no profitable deviations. So firm 1 setting a price of £5,999. If they deviate upwards to £6,000, then as I said, we're sharing the market, they're getting half as much demand, they're making almost the same profit per unit, they're worse off. If they deviate to above £6,000, then they're not selling any at all, okay, they're certainly worse off. If they deviate downwards to 5,998, then they're still selling the same number of units. Okay, demand is completely inelastic. By cutting their price down, they haven't increased demand, but now they're making less per unit sold. Okay, so they don't want to cut their price either. So firm 1 neither wants to increase their price nor to decrease their price. What about firm 2? Well, if firm 2 decreased its price to 5,999, then it would be selling, okay, but its marginal cost is 6,000, so it would be making a loss on every unit it sold. So it certainly doesn't want to do that. If it increased its price, well, it's currently not selling any units. If it increases its price, it's still not selling any units. So its profit's gone from 0 to 0. It's indifferent, okay? It doesn't care. It's happy where it is. It's certainly not any better by increasing its price. So this is an equilibrium. Could there be any other equilibria? Anyone? Yeah?
Would it be 6,000, 6,001?
Yeah, that looks promising. Have you seen this before? It's good. Okay, so could this be an equilibrium? Well, firm 1 is quite happy. So the consumers are all buying from firm 1. Okay, if firm 1 cuts its price, it's not getting any more demand, but it's making less per unit sold, so it doesn't want to do that. If firm 1 raises its price to 6,001, then it's sharing the market, so its demand is half what it was before, so it doesn't want to do that. So firm 1's certainly happy. Firm 2, well, firm 2 is making 0 profits at the moment, right? It's selling 0 units, so it's making 0 profits. If it cut its price to £6,000, then it would be selling some units, but its marginal cost is £6,000, so it would still be making 0 profit. So firm 2 doesn't want to cut its price either, and it's indifferent about raising its price. Okay, so this is an equilibrium too. Okay, so there are 2 equilibria in this game, at least 2, there might be a mixed one. Okay, so let's go back to these questions. What is the maximum difference between the prices set by 2 firms in any equilibrium? Well, from looking there, it looks like it's £1. And what's the intuition for this? Well, suppose there was a £2 difference between the prices the firms were setting, then the firm setting the lower price would like to increase its price. Everyone's buying from the firm setting the cheaper price. Okay, so if there was a £2 difference, it would increase its price, so if there was only a £1 difference. And it would certainly be better off. It'd be making more profit on each unit it sold without changing its demand. So there can never be more than a £1 difference between the prices set by the 2 firms. Okay, and then I say in the Nash equilibrium in which firm 1 makes the highest possible profits, what prices does each firm set? Why? Well, here's one equilibrium. This is getting profits of £2,000 per unit. Can there be one in which they make higher profit? No, I don't think there can be. You know, if firm 1 sets 6,001 and firm 2 sets 6,002, say, well, then firm 2 would have a profitable deviation to setting a price of 6,001. Okay, they get half the market, they make £1 per unit sold. So firm 2 would like to deviate in this world. So there can't be any other equilibrium in pure strategies from these two. Okay, then I go on to say, now suppose the demand curve for cars is given by 5,000 minus P. Okay, so people are never prepared to pay more than £5,000 for a car. Okay, so why don't you have a go at these two questions on your own for a minute? Did you get the answer? So what's the answer to the first part? Does someone have an answer already? Yep. 1,000. Okay. So okay, so how do we work that out? Well, first thing you always do is you write down profits. Okay, profits are just price times quantity minus total cost. Equivalently, assuming no fixed costs here, it's quantity times price minus marginal cost. Okay, so firm 1 has a marginal cost of £4,000. Okay, and the demand curve is 5,000 minus P, so let's substitute that in. So 5,000 minus P. So here's our expression for profits. Okay, I'll show you a little trick. Okay, this is a quadratic. And maximizing quadratics is a lot easier than maximizing general functions. Okay, where does the quadratic cross the axis? So we can maximize this without doing any differentiation. That's the trick. So it's gonna look like that, right? And where are the 2 points where it's gonna cross the axis? So this is P. Sorry, this is pi. Let's look at what this profit function looks like. 4,000 and 5,000. If P is 5,000, then this term is 0. Okay, so profits are 0. If P is 4,000, this term is 0, so profits are 0. Okay, so if we put 4,000 here and 5,000 here, okay, then profits must look like something like that. Okay, and the nice thing about quadratics is that they always have a maximum halfway between the two roots. Okay, we know one root is at 4,000, the other root is at 5,000, so the maximum must be at 4,500. You could also do this by differentiating and find the first order conditions, but you don't need to here, right? So price was 4,500. Quantity is going to be 500. So they sell 500 cars. Okay, so this is what firm 1 would do if firm 2 wasn't around. Okay, it's above firm 1's marginal cost of £4,000. That makes sense. You know, firm 1 is never going to price below its marginal cost. But it's below firm 2's marginal cost. So now suppose for both firms were there, okay, both firm 1 and firm 2, what price would firm 1 want to set? Go on. You're feeling shy. Okay. Someone else? So why would we not just set a price of 4,500? Pardon? Yeah, well firm 2 wouldn't set a price of 4,500. So yeah, what's going to happen is firm 1 would set a price of 4,500. You know, if that's the best they can do on their own, then why not do that? That's what's going to maximise their profits. And firm 2 can set whatever the hell price it likes as long as it's above 4,500, and it's going to be in equilibrium. Does that make sense? Okay, so the equilibrium here with two firms is going to be firm 1 4,500, firm 2 anything greater than 4,500. Does that make, go on?
Is it not anything greater than 6,000?
No. You know, so firm 2 can set a price of 4,501. As long as firm 1 is setting a price of 4,500, firm 2 is not selling anything. So, although it's kind of crazy to set a price below marginal cost, it doesn't actually need to worry because it knows no one's going to buy from it anyway. So, it's slightly strange for firm 2 to set a price below marginal cost, but they can do it safely here because they know no one's going to buy from them. Okay, so how many equilibria are there in this game? Well, infinitely many, right? 4,501, 4,502, all the way up to infinity. So there are lots and lots of equilibria, and generally, you know, you never actually get completely inelastic demand curves, right? In reality, demand is always a little bit elastic, so the demand curve is going to matter in Bircham competition. When you saw Bircham competition before, the demand curve never mattered. Here, clearly the demand curve matters. Firm 1 never wants to set a price above its monopoly price, because above its monopoly price, its profits are going down. Okay, so this is the best it can do, it never wants to go above that. Okay, so we can formalize some of these intuitive results from a simple example. Okay, so suppose, going back to thinking that we've got n firms with these marginal costs C1 up to Cn. let's suppose that for some firm I, the price that firm is selling is strictly bigger than the market price, P star, which is weakly bigger than Ci plus epsilon. Okay, so if it was the case that the firm was selling a price bigger than the market price and at least epsilon more than its marginal cost, well, firm I is not currently selling anything because its price is bigger than the market price. Only firms selling the market price can be selling any goods at all. Okay, so it's making zero profits. Would it like to deviate? Well, suppose it deviated to selling a price of Ci plus epsilon. Okay, if it says the price is Ci plus epsilon, it's either equal to or smaller than the market price, so it's going to start selling things. And because it's strictly bigger than Ci, it's going to make at least a profit of epsilon on every unit it sells. So if it was ever the case that this held, then firm I would like to deviate to setting a price of Ci plus epsilon. Okay, does that make sense? So it can't be the case that this ever holds in an equilibrium. Right? In a Nash equilibrium, no firm can want to deviate. What we've shown is that if this held, then firm I would like to deviate. Okay, so it can't be in an equilibrium to start with. Thus, in any equilibrium, it must be the case that either Pi is less or equal to P star, or that P star is strictly less than Ci plus epsilon. So it must be the case that this doesn't hold in any equilibrium. Okay, or stated another way, if it was true in some pure strategy Nash equilibrium that P star was bigger than Ci plus epsilon, okay, so this bit was true, then it must be the case that this bit was false. Okay, so it must be the case that Pi is less or equal to P star. Yeah, and given that P star is the minimum of all of the Pi's, Pi can never be strictly less than P star. Okay, so Pi must equal P star. Okay. Do you see that logic? Okay, so this is a bit mathsy. This is how micro theory works, right? We do these formal mathematical proofs. Okay, so what we've proven is that in any equilibrium, if P star is bigger than the marginal cost of a firm plus a penny, then that firm must actually be at pricing at P star. Okay, so, or in other words, the only firms that can possibly be making a profit are the ones who are pricing at P star. Okay, so if you're pricing above P star, then you can't be making a profit. Okay, so some firms, at least one firm must have Pi equals P star. Remember, P star is the minimum of all of the Pi's. Suppose we're two firms. Okay, suppose firm I and firm J both had Pi equals Pj equals to P star. Okay, then, well, if P star was strictly bigger than Ci plus epsilon, then firm I would have a profitable deviation. Okay, it would like to deviate to Ci plus epsilon. Yeah, or it doesn't need to go so far, it just needs to subtract epsilon from its price, sorry. Okay. So, there they've cut their price by epsilon, they've gone from Pi to Pi minus epsilon, they've cut their price by epsilon, they've gone from sharing the market, okay, before there were two firms, price equal to the lowest price, to having the whole market. So, you've lost epsilon off your price, but the market has gone from half a market to the whole market. Okay, so your profits must have increased. As long as epsilon is small enough. Okay, so at least as long as epsilon is small enough, in any pure Nash equilibrium, there can be at most one firm for which this is true. Okay, because if there were two firms, one of them would deviate. Okay, so there's at most one firm who's setting a price strictly above marginal cost plus a penny. Okay. So there might be two firms setting prices bigger than marginal cost. Okay, but only one of them can be setting a price bigger than marginal cost plus a penny. And when epsilon is very small indeed, this means gives you the normal Bertrand result, but in equilibrium only one firm makes a profit. Okay, so let me go on for a few more slides, then we'll have a break. Okay, but I just want to get through this material before the break. Okay, so suppose all firms had the same marginal cost for a second. Okay, so CI equals C for all firms. So then the second result says that there's at most one firm for which P star is bigger than C plus epsilon. Okay, all firms are the same. So it must be the case that either no firms have price strictly bigger than C plus epsilon, okay, or there's only one firm in total. And why is that? It's just because of symmetry. Okay, there's only one firm setting a price bigger than C plus epsilon. Okay, if one firm is setting that, okay, yeah, there's only one firm setting a price. At most one firm setting a price bigger than C plus epsilon. Okay, so that means there's either 0 or there's 1 firm setting a price like that. If we're 0 firms, okay, then then that's fine. You know, everyone's setting a price between C and C plus epsilon. Or there could be only. Yeah, or another way it could be true if there's only one firm in total. Okay. It can't, yeah. I'm not explaining this very well. So the idea is that P is going to be the same for all firms. Right? These firms are symmetric. They all have the same marginal cost. Okay, so you can't have an equilibrium where one firm is pricing above C plus epsilon and another firm isn't, right? Because then the other firm would like to deviate to pricing in C plus epsilon as well. They all have the same cost. Sorry. Okay, so this is just an immediate consequence of what we proved before. Okay. Only one firm can be setting a price bigger than its marginal cost plus a penny. Okay. Only one firm can the market price even be bigger than its marginal cost plus a penny. So the market price is the minimum of the price set by all firms. Okay, this is constant across firms, so there can only be at most one. Okay, and then as long as we're at least two firms, okay, we rule out the monopoly case. As long as we're at least two firms, we're in this world. Okay, so for all firms, they're setting a price between marginal cost and marginal cost plus a penny. Or said another way, if the market price, maybe this is clearer. Imagine that the market price was bigger than marginal cost plus a penny. Okay, then a firm would have a profitable deviation to marginal cost plus a penny. Is that clear? Right? If P star was bigger than C plus epsilon, one of those firms would want to deviate to C plus epsilon. Is that clear? Yes. Okay, that's clearer. Okay, so as long as we've got at least two firms, the market price must be between marginal cost and marginal cost plus epsilon plus a penny. So, you know, the standard Bertrand result that you've seen before is that firms price at marginal cost. Okay, in the symmetric case. Here we get a similar result. We say firms price at either marginal cost or marginal cost plus epsilon. So firms can price a little bit above marginal cost even in Bertrand competition, but not more than a penny. Okay, not more than epsilon. So this is kind of a competitive solution. When marginal costs aren't all the same, okay, then suppose we're two firms with marginal cost equal to the lowest level of marginal cost. Okay, so min CI, this is the lowest marginal cost of all of the firms. Suppose we're two firms with that level of marginal cost. Okay, maybe firm 1 and firm 2, say. Then it's like those two firms are in a symmetric equilibrium. Those two firms are going to be competing against each other, if you like, and we can apply these results from the symmetric case. Okay, so then, if that's true, the market price is going to be between the minimum of all the marginal costs and the minimum of all the marginal costs plus a penny. Okay, so for two firms with exactly the same marginal cost, and that marginal cost is the lowest, then if you like, those two firms compete with each other until the price is equal to either marginal cost or marginal cost plus a penny. So that's the competitive case. Alternatively, there's going to be some unique firm K such that CK is the minimum of all the CIs. Okay, firm K is the firm with the lowest marginal cost. Then what's that firm going to do? Well, it wants to set a price above CK. Okay, you don't want to sell below CK. It's going to set a price somewhere in the interval between CK plus epsilon and the minimum of the second highest marginal cost, CJ, and the monopoly price. Okay, the firm never wants to set a price above the monopoly price. That's what we saw in the example with the quadratic profit function. And you can't set a price higher than the second highest marginal cost. Okay? If you set a price higher than the second highest marginal cost, then that firm would want to undercut you. That firm would want to deviate to setting a higher price. Okay, in fact, there's going to be an equilibrium for every possible price in this interval. Okay, so there are going to be lots of equilibriums to Bertrand competition. Any price in this interval is going to be sustainable. Okay, and I'll show you why after a break with these examples. Okay, I think we all need a break. Okay, 5 minutes.
Now you're going to make especially she made Get a new phone. Football with it.
Although she did finish the lecture. No,
Yeah, I was never
yeah.
It's gonna be the it's only gonna have and then just sleep in the even I told
Okay, should we carry on? You woken up the man. Okay, so we did some theory, some theoretical results. Okay, now let's apply that to some practical examples, which will probably make things a bit clearer about how these equilibria work. Okay, you can maybe go back to the theory once you've seen some examples. So let's go through these examples. There are 3 firms, making our life a bit more complicated. For now, I'm leaving the demand curve unspecified. Okay, so you can give me answers both for totally elastic demand and for slightly elastic, totally inelastic demand and for elastic demand. And it will make a difference to some of these. Okay, so first one, everyone has marginal costs of 100. What equilibria are there? So 3 firms, all with marginal cost equal to 100. What equilibrium might there be?
They're all selling at their marginal cost.
Okay, there's one, everyone else at 100. 100, 100, 100. What profits is everyone making in that equilibrium? 0. Okay, so given that everyone's making 0 profits, Can we change what equilibria to get some others? Can you give me another equilibrium? So what about 100, 100, what could go here? What else could go here? Any number. Yeah, as long as it's bigger than 100. Anything bigger or equal to 100. Yeah, everyone's making zero profits. Okay? Kind of doesn't matter what price the third guy sets. He doesn't care whether he sells. You know, you can set a price at 200. You can price at 1 million. He's making zero profits in either case. So he doesn't care. Likewise, you know, this guy, if these two are at 100, this guy could do anything. If these two are at 100, this guy could do anything. What about 100 greater or equal to 100? Greater or equal to 100? Does that work? No. Okay, so why does, say, 100, 101, 101 not work? What's wrong with that? Well, this guy has a profitable deviation upwards, right? If two people are pricing 101, this guy would like to increase his price to 101. So 100, 101, 101 doesn't work, but
Wait, wouldn't he have the whole market?
whole market with zero profits.
Yeah, but then if he deviates, he has zero profit as well. So he's indifferent.
No. So.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So in this case, he has the whole market, but he's making zero profit per unit sold. If he deviates upwards to 101, he only has a third of the market, but at least the firm is making £1 per unit sold. So this is another equilibrium. Remember, our result for symmetric firms said the equilibria had a market price between 100 and 101. That's what our theoretical results said. So our theoretical results say that something like 102, 102, 102 can't be an equilibrium. Why is that? Yeah, exactly. Any of these firms would like to deviate outwards. Okay, so those are all of the equilibria with symmetric prices, I think. I always find that I miss one out when I do this, but I think that's all of them. Okay, what about 100, 100, 200? What equilibria will we have? Do my laces up. Someone shout out the first equilibrium. Just a second. Any suggestions?
200, 200, 200.
Okay, 200, 200, 200. Okay, is this a case where it's going to depend on the demand curve? Might depend on the demand curve. So, this is a difficult one. So, if this guy deviates downwards to 199, no, this is clear, isn't it? If they deviate down to 199, we're going from all of the market, we're going from half the market at £100 per unit to all of the market at £99 per unit. You know, unless the demand curve is very strange, they're going to prefer that, right? So I think with a downwards deviation here, what about 199, 199, 200? So there's still a downwards deviation. This person would like to deviate to 198. Okay, go from half a market to all of a market, only lose £1 of profit per unit, probably better off to have double the market. Okay, so probably not going to have big prices, right? Remember our theoretical results said when we're two firms with the same marginal cost, then the market price was going to be either the marginal cost or the marginal cost plus epsilon, so plus £1. Okay, so the market price in this market must be either 100 or 101. So that helps us narrow down the range of equilibria. So let's start with 100, 100, 101. Okay, this is a strange equilibrium because the third firm is pricing below marginal cost, but they're not selling anything, so they don't care. Okay, so this is one of those odd equilibria where people price below marginal cost. Is it an equilibrium? Well, if this firm deviated upwards to 101, they wouldn't be selling anything. If this firm deviated upwards to 101, they wouldn't be selling anything. Okay, so this is an equilibrium. 101, and it doesn't actually, it just has to be strictly right. It doesn't have to be 101. 101 strictly greater than 101. That's going to be an equilibrium as well. Right, they're currently making £1 of profit per unit, but sharing the market. If they deviate down, then we get the whole market, but they're making £0 per unit. So they make 0 profits. So they prefer this to deviating downwards. I think that's it. Have I missed any?
Can I ask again if 100, 100, 100 is also an equilibrium?
100, 100, 100 wouldn't be an equilibrium here because the third firm would like to deviate upwards. Okay, the third firm doesn't want to sell at £100 because it's below its marginal cost. Okay, so 100, 100, 100 can't be an equilibrium because the third firm would deviate to a higher price.
Well, in this case, wouldn't the second equilibrium depend on the demand curve? The demand curve is Q equals 100 minus P.
Yeah, okay, so if people aren't prepared to pay more than £100, then this can't be an equilibrium. Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of these depend on the demand curve. Yeah, is this one where? No, I think it's these ones where it depends on the demand curve in an interesting way. Okay. Okay. Well, let's go to the next one. £100, £200, £200. What might they look like for that? Okay, so this is going to depend on the demand curve, right? The monopoly firm 1 never wants to set a price above the monopoly price. Okay, so if the monopoly price was £150, firm 1 is never going to set a price above £150. Okay, so the demand curve is going to make a difference here. Because firm 1's kind of unconstrained in this case, right? Firm 2 has a much higher price. Firm 1 has all of this space in which to set its price. So let's suppose for the moment that the monopoly price is above £200. Okay, so we don't have to worry about the demand curve. Okay, so if demand is completely inelastic, the monopoly price is infinite. Okay, so that's one case. So there are some very strange equilibria here. What's the equilibrium in which firm 1 makes lowest profits?
100, more than 100, more than 100.
100, more than 100, more than 100. Well, you have to be a bit careful. Saying, okay, well let's start with 100, 101, 101. Well here, firm 1 has a profitable deviation upwards. Because at the moment they're making 0 profits. Okay, if they deviate upwards to 101, then they're getting a third of the market, £1 per unit. That's positive profits, they prefer that. So this isn't an equilibrium. But what about 101, 102, and anything greater or equal to 102? Okay, strange equilibrium where one firm's setting a price below marginal cost. The demand curve is going to matter here, isn't it? Okay, if demand is completely, totally inelastic, suppose that for a moment the demand is totally inelastic, okay? So they sell n units, so suppose they sell n units. Okay, so profits here are, profits from not deviating are n. You sell n units, you make £1 profit on each one. So your total profits are n pounds. Suppose firm 1 deviates upwards to 102. What are its profits? Well, it now has half the market, okay, because it's sharing demand with firm 2. Let's make that strictly greater than to make our life easier. Okay, so this is 103 or higher. Okay, if firm 1 deviates upwards, then it's getting half a market and making £2, so it's 2 times n over 2. £2 profit per unit, n over 2 units sold, which makes n pounds. Okay, so with complete, totally inelastic demand, firm 1 is indifferent between setting this price and increasing its price. Okay, so with totally inelastic demand, 101, 102, anything bigger than 102 is an equilibrium here. What if demand is slightly downward sloping? Well, if demand is slightly downward sloping, when you increase the price, which you're doing here, you're going from 101 to 102, you increase the price, quantity must fall. Okay, so you don't get n over 2 here, you get a bit less than n over 2. So you must be strictly worse off. Okay, so only with completely, totally inelastic demand is this one an equilibrium. With elastic demand, even tiny bit elastic demand, this won't be an equilibrium. So maybe with elastic demand we need to go up to something else, 102, 103, anything bigger than 103. Now, they increase their price by 1. Okay, their demand goes from, their profits goes from 2n to 3n over 2. Okay, even if demand is quite elastic, they're not going to want to deviate that. So this one is only for elastic demand, inelastic even, inelastic. This is moderately. You know, if demand is very elastic, right? If demand drops off very quickly as their price increases, and this one might not be an equilibrium either. So you have to specify the demand curve for these things, but it probably is. So these are the lowest, the equilibrium which firm 1 makes the lowest profits here. And obviously you can carry on increasing these numbers and firm 1 makes progressively higher profits. These are all a bit strange because firm 2 is setting the price below marginal cost. Okay, but firm 2 doesn't want to deviate because it's not selling anything, so it's indifferent. The ones in which firm 1 makes highest profits, well, let's have a look at one in which firm 1 sets the price at 200, Firm 2 sets the price of 201. 201. What about that? Does anyone have a profitable deviation? Well, firm 2 and firm 3, they're pricing above marginal cost. If they reduce their price to 200, then the pricing at marginal cost, they make zero profit. Okay, so firm 2 and firm 3 don't want to reduce their price here. They don't want to increase it either, it doesn't make any difference. Does firm 1 want to increase its price? Well, at the moment it's getting all the market at £200. That's probably going to dominate getting 1/3 of the market at £201. Okay, so this is the equilibrium in which firm 1 makes the highest profit, I think. Could this be? Let's just check. Does this work? No, it doesn't. You know, this can't be an equilibrium because firm 2 would like to reduce its price to 201. You know, at the moment they're making zero profit. If they reduce their price to 201, they're getting 1/3 of a market, half a market, but making a little bit of profit. Okay, so this isn't an equilibrium. So for huge numbers of equilibrium in this game, that's what you're getting. You're getting the trick to these things. These ones get annoying when we've got small gaps between the firms. So what equilibrium can you think of for this one? 100, 102, 104. Give me a low profit equilibrium to start with.
Wait, so is the third one equilibrium or not?
Which one?
The third one, 1, 2, 3, third.
100, 200, 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were just looking at. All of these were different equilibria for it. So these are marginal costs, they're not prices.
Okay.
Okay, so suppose marginal costs were 100, 200, 200, then we had all of those different equilibria that we've written down. Okay, so for equilibrium which firm 1 prices at any price between 101 and 200. Is this not working anymore? Sorry. 101, 200. Okay, so what's the lowest profit equilibria here, do we think? Give me some numbers. What price might firm 1 set?
103.
102, okay, well, that could be an equilibrium. And firm 2?
The same.
The same? Someone said the same, okay. And firm 3, what do you want for firm 3?
104. Just more than
Above, anything above 102.
Okay, bigger than 102. Okay, so is that an equilibrium? This is going to depend on the demand curve. Firm 1 is currently getting £2 per unit on half the market. Okay, it has the option of cutting its price to 101 and getting the whole market. So does it prefer getting £2 per unit on half the market or £1 per unit on the whole market? Well, with totally inelastic demand, it's going to be indifferent. If demand is a little bit elastic, then the total pie is smaller when it's setting a higher price. Okay, so it would rather cut its price to 101, get the whole market. So it's going to depend on whether demand is inelastic or not. So this is going to be fine with totally inelastic demand. Firm 2, does firm 2 want to deviate? Doesn't want to deviate down? No. Doesn't want to deviate up? Yeah, firm 3 is fine. So that's a possibility. There's also clearly 101, 102, greater than 102, say. Okay, as long as firm 1 doesn't want to deviate upwards because it's either the same off or worse off depending on the demand curve. Firm 2 doesn't want to deviate down because 102 is its marginal cost, it doesn't want to go below marginal cost. Okay, so that's a possibility. For others, can we get 100, 100? No. No, so that's going to be it. Is that? Okay, final one. 100, marginal cost of 100, 101 and 102. Is this going to be any different from this case?
About the same.
About the same. Okay, so before we had, what did we have? We had one which was pricing at the second marginal cost. Okay, so 101, 102. Well, let's look at some possibilities. 101, 101, 102. 101, 102. Have I got all of the obvious ones? I've got zeros. Certainly like a sensible collection. So let's check each of these in turn. Okay, so the first one, firm 1 is making profits of £1 per unit. Okay, it's getting the whole market. It's quite happy. Does it want to deviate up? Well, if it deviates up, well, there could be another one, right? Could there be 102, 102? What about that? Is that a possibility? Hundreds of these things. So, firm 1 is in this one. Firm 1 is getting the whole market. If it deviates up, then it's sharing the market with firm 2. As the price goes up, the pot gets smaller unless demand is totally inelastic. So it doesn't want to deviate up. Doesn't want to deviate down because then it's pricing at marginal cost. So firm 1's happy here. Firm 2, well, firm 2 isn't producing anything. It could cut its price to 101, but it's going from 0 profits to 0 profits, right? At a price of 101, it's at marginal cost, so it's not making any profit. And firm 3 is whatever, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that one looks good. This one, both firms setting a price of 101, with the other firm higher. Well, firm 1 is pricing above marginal cost, so he's making a bit of profit. Doesn't want to deviate down because if he deviates down, he's at marginal cost. Okay, then he's making 0 profit. Doesn't want to deviate up because then he's not selling any at all. Firm 2, well, firm 2 is pricing at marginal cost. Okay, if firm 2 deviates up, he's not selling anything, so you're still making 0 profit. If firm 2 deviates down, then he's making a loss on each unit sold, so he doesn't want to do that. And firm 3 doesn't really matter, so that one looks fine. What about this one? Everyone pricing at marginal cost. This doesn't look good, does it actually? Here, firm 1 is making 0 profits. But if they deviate up to 101, then they make positive profits. So this can't be an equilibrium. So that one's out. And this final one, what was I trying to do here? Suppose both firm 1 and firm 2 set a price of 102. Well then, firm 1 is sharing the market with firm 2. It's making £2 profit per unit on half the market. If demand is totally inelastic, then it's going to be indifferent between this and cutting its price by £1, getting the entire market. So in the totally inelastic case, we have this one extra equilibrium. Does all of that make sense? You know, so for these problems, you just need to think through the possibilities. You know, who wants to raise their price? Who wants to cut their price? There can be a lot of equilibria. They're often quite similar, but yeah, it's easy to work them out. The most interesting case in a way was this one, with £100, £200, £200. Because in this case, there were equilibrium which firm 1 set a price anywhere between 101 and £200. Okay, so it's not just that the market price is either 100 or 101, like in some of the other examples. Here, the market price can be anywhere between 101 and £200. So there can be lots of different outcomes of price that are compatible with equilibrium. Okay, so Bertrand competition. Profits are low, but they're not necessarily zero, and there are generally lots and lots of equilibrium. Okay? And if there's some dispersion in marginal costs, if there are big gaps between marginal costs, then firms can make quite substantial profits, even under Bertrand competition. Okay, so maybe that was broadly old. You'd seen Bertrand competition before. You had some flavour for this. Okay, we saw there were some profits, but maybe they weren't super high. Let me now show you an example in which profits can be crazily high. In fact, profits can be infinite. Okay. So, suppose we just have two firms, and suppose demand is totally inelastic. Okay, so this is like the demand for water. Doesn't matter what the price of water is, I'm always going to want some water. Otherwise I'm going to die, right? So I will pay any price in order to have these basic essentials of life. So here we've got Evian and Volvic selling bottled water to people in the desert. Okay, you haven't drunk for a month, you're about to die of thirst. Evian and Volvic come up to you and they want to sell you a bottle of water. They both have zero marginal costs. You know, water is not an expensive product to produce. Okay, and these consumers will pay any price. So, because demand is totally inelastic, a monopolist would set an infinite price. Okay, even if the monopolist can set an arbitrarily large price, the demand stays constant. Okay, it doesn't matter what demand the monopolist sets, demand is constant. So if a monopolist wants to set an infinite price, essentially. Sets an infinite price, gets infinite profits. Okay, so monopoly profits are infinite in this world. If it was standard Bertrand competition, okay, well, then price is equal to 0, possibly, plus epsilon. Okay, if epsilon is a penny, profits are essentially 0. Okay, so standard Bertrand profits are either 0 or 0 plus a penny. Very small. Okay. But just as when we looked at stag hunt, there weren't just two equilibrium, there was a third equilibrium of mixed strategies. In Bertrand competition, there's often equilibrium mixed strategies as well. Okay, these you certainly won't have seen before. They're a bit more complicated to construct. Okay, remember that the trick with mixed strategies is that each player has to choose their actions to make the other player indifferent. Okay, so here, what are the actions? Actions are choosing a price. So you're going to choose any integer price between 1 and infinity, and you've got to choose some probability on choosing each of these integers. Okay, so let's fix some number z. Z is going to be important later, but for now it's just some positive number. And suppose that each firm never chooses a price less than z. Okay, so z is the least the firm ever sells water at. And if you tell me some price bigger, price p, with p bigger than z, then the firm is going to choose a price greater than p with probability z divided by p. So this is a bit like a cumulative distribution function. Okay. Sorry, I should have said, I talked about integer pricing a second ago. What I'm doing here is for continuous pricing. So it just makes our life a bit easier. So this is actually for epsilon arbitrarily small, a bit like you've seen Persian competition before. So, you know, they can set kind of any price. They can sell water for 0.0000001 pence if they want. Okay, it just makes our life a bit easier in constructing this equilibrium. Okay, so this is how they're randomizing. Okay, they're never choosing prices less than Z, and for prices P bigger than Z, they're going to choose a price greater than P with probability Z over P. Okay, remember that a cumulative distribution function gives you the probability that price is less or equal. Price for random variable is less or equal to P. That's what a cumulative distribution function is, right? We're constructing a cumulative distribution function for prices, for these firms are going to draw from. And what I've told you is that the probability that price is greater than P is equal to Z over P. Okay, well, then what's this thing, the cumulative distribution function? Probability P less or equal to little p is 1 minus the probability that P is bigger than little p. Okay, because either P is less or equal to little p or it's bigger than little p. So these things are complementary events. Either one happens or the other. Probability of one must be 1 minus the probability of the other. So this is 1 minus Z over P. Okay, so what I've told you is effectively the cumulative distribution function from which these firms are drawing their prices. Okay, and I'm claiming this is an equilibrium. So why is it an equilibrium? Well, okay, suppose firm 1 knows firm 2 is choosing their price at random as I described. So what are the expected profits of firm 1? Well, if they choose a price P1, then profits are price times quantity. Okay? There's the price, P1. What's the quantity you sell? Well, if you choose a price that's less than the other firm's price, P2, then you're going to have the whole market. Okay, it's like your quantity is 1, where 1 is the whole market. If you choose a price bigger than P2, then everyone's going to buy from the other firm, and your quantity is going to be 0. Okay, so price times quantity is price, expected price times quantity is price times the probability that your price is less than the other firm's price. Okay, the only time you're going to sell is when your price is less than the other firm's price. So this is the expected quantity that you sell. Okay, well, what is this? P1 times probability P2 is bigger than P1, where P1 here is the random variable. Okay, well, this probability, the probability that you choose a price greater than P, P2 is the random variable. The other firm is choosing randomly. Sorry. So what's the probability that the other firm chooses a price P2 bigger than P1? Well, according to what I said over before, is Z divided by P2. Okay, so this probability, Z divided by P1. Sorry. This probability is P1 times Z divided by P1. P1's cancel out, this is just Z. Let me say that again. Okay, these firms, they care about firm 1 is choosing what price to set given that firm 2 is randomizing. Okay, firm 2 is drawing a price from this distribution. For each possible price that firm 1 can set, firm 1 wants to work out its expected profits. Okay, if firm 1 sets a certain price, P1, then its expected profits are going to be P1 times the expected quantity it sells. Its expected quantity, the quantity it sells is going to be the whole market, 1, if it set a price below the other firm, It's going to be nothing if it set a price above the other firm. Okay, so as a proportion of the whole market, its expected quantity is the probability that its price is smaller than the other firm's price. Okay, where the other firm is choosing this price randomly. The rule according to which the other firm chooses their price randomly says that firm 2 will choose a price bigger than P1 with probability Z divided by P1. Okay, so the probability that this random variable P2 is bigger than P1 is Z divided by P1. Expected profits are price P1 times expected quantity Z divided by P1, which is just Z. So firm 1's profits don't depend on price. So firm 1 is indifferent about what price to set. If firm 2 is randomizing according to that rule, firm 1 is completely indifferent about what price to set. So firm 1 is happy to randomize as well. Okay, so both firms randomizing in this way is going to be an equilibrium. And we started by choosing this constant Z. Z was just an arbitrary number. Okay? So for any Z, we can construct an equilibrium in which expected profits were equal to Z. So if I choose Z equal to £1 billion, there is a Nash equilibrium in which expected profits are £1 billion. And I can choose Z equal to trillion pounds, there's still a Nash equilibrium in which expected profits are that level. Okay, so it's not just the case that in Bertrand competition you can get little profits from pricing £1 above or something, or from dispersion in marginal costs. If demand is completely inelastic, you can get essentially infinite profits even with Bertrand competition. Okay, so what you've been told before, that Bertrand competition was the magic bullet to get efficiency, to get price equal to marginal cost, is just not true. Bertrand competition has these mixed equilibria in which profits are essentially infinite. Does this make any sense? Okay, is this just some stupid bit of maths that doesn't have any application to the real world? Well, these firms are pricing randomly. Where in the real world do you see firms doing what looks like random pricing? Well, a good example I'd argue is sales. Right? It's very hard for imagine you've got two market stalls. Okay, they want to sell off their bananas. It's very hard for one market stall to know what a market stall on the other end of the market is doing with the price of bananas. You know, they have some vague idea about what kind of prices the other firm is going to be setting, but they can't keep running around to the other firm to check what price they're going to set. So what happens is they end up setting different prices. Okay, there's quite substantial price dispersion. There's price dispersion between Sainsbury's and Tesco's, etc., etc. Towards the end of the day in a market stall, market sellers often cut their price substantially. Okay, and they don't necessarily cut it to a certain value, they just choose a random number. So sales to me look quite a lot like random pricing. You know, a selection of goods in the store are going to be sold at a lower price, and it's hard for the other firm to immediately respond to that lower price. Okay, due to time it takes for information to flow between these firms. So random pricing is one explanation for why we see price dispersion in reality. Right? According to the Bertrand model, all firms should be selling almost, for a pure strategy Bertrand model, all firms should be selling essentially the same price. In this mixed strategy world, firms can set very different prices because they're all choosing random prices each period. And that looks a bit like a sale. You know, one period you sell mince pies for £2.99. Next period you sell them for £7. You know, the other firms can't keep up with the prices you sell. So it's not completely implausible. Yeah. Okay. So the slightly iffy thing with what we've shown you is the completely inelastic demand. Obviously, demand isn't completely inelastic in reality. But it turns out you don't actually need inelastic demand to get these things to go through. Okay? So you only need a monopolist's profits to be infinite. We showed before that with isoelastic demand, monopolist profits can be infinite if alpha is appropriate. And that's empirically plausible. Or alternatively, there might be uncertainty about the location of a choke point in demand. Okay, so suppose demand starts off quite inelastic. Everyone wants to buy a mobile phone, but there's some price above which people would just stop buying mobile phones. Okay, maybe no one would buy a mobile phone if they cost £2,000. But people don't know exactly what the value of this choke point is. Okay, no firm tries to sell mobile phones at £2,000, so there's never been a natural experiment that's revealed the point at which people would stop buying mobile phones. As long as there's some uncertainty about that choke point, and demand is quite inelastic up to that point, then there are mixed strategy equilibria, virtual competition, featuring very high profits. And similar things are going to hold true when the firms compete in multiple periods, okay, when this is a repeated game. I better stop there since it's 6 o'clock. We'll do Corno next week. Okay, there are some exercises here. So these are probably game theory. Yeah, so these should be virtual competition, these ones. So. Okay, you'll see which ones are virtual.